Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Elite Podcast, the thought leadership platform designed for behavioral health executives navigating growth, innovation, and impact. I'm your host, Garth, and today we're joined by a guest who has helped transform the way people discover trusted addiction and mental health treatment facilities. Joining us today is Ben Camp. He's the CEO and co-founder of Recover.com, one of the industry's leading platforms connecting individuals and families with high-quality behavioral health care providers around the world. Under Ben's leadership, Recover.com has evolved beyond a treatment directory into now a trusted marketplace focused on transparency, education, and helping people make one of the most important decisions of their lives. In today's conversation, we'll explore how trust has become the new currency in patient acquisition, how technology and AI are reshaping treatment search experience, and what treatment providers must do to stand out in an increasingly competitive digital landscape. We'll also touch upon where Ben believes the future of behavioral health care, marketing, and overall admissions is headed. So if you're a treatment center provider, if you are a facility owner, executive, admissions director, or you're simply just passionate about improving access to care in this industry, this episode is for you. Ben, welcome to the Elevate Podcast. It's great to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Gary. I'm excited.
Ben, why don't you take us back to the beginning? I'd like to start with the original mission. I know you guys are very mission driven and operate with a hell of a lot of passion and purpose behind everything you do. What problem did yourself and Jeremiah look to solve back in 2017 when you first founded Recover.com?
Thanks, Gary. It's great to be here and spend some time with you. You've been a great partner over the years and just have a shared mission for helping treatment providers grow their centers ethically. We started the company all the way back in 2017. My co-founder and I had a similar background to Elevate in that we were helping treatment centers with their marketing. And as we did that, we just developed a real passion for the space and then also saw a very prevalent problem with patients being taken advantage of during their treatment journey. So there was a lot of websites out there that appeared to be independent, helpful resources, but in fact were trying to take advantage of people in their darkest hour often. So we like to say that we started the company with a bit of righteous indignation around what was happening and realizing that we could build a real trusted resource, that this would be something that people around the world would really benefit from. And we've really seen that come to fruition over the past 10 years.
Yeah, safe to say so. I believe I saw a post from you maybe not too many months ago. You guys have surpassed over 1 million visitors on your Recover.com URL, right?
Yeah, per month. Yep.
Per month.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. And recently, you've gone ahead and acquired several other, if I'm not mistaken, the AAC recovery brands acquisition of multiple domains.
About this time last year, we were approached by American addiction centers who had owned for quite a long time some of the more premium domains in the space, like rehabs.com, recovery.org, and had gotten lots of traffic through those websites. They and us really didn't think that they were the best owner of those websites. We had always believed that they should be owned by an independent company like ours that can help people survey all the different options that are available to them. And so it was a really, I think, as we put together the deal to purchase those websites, I think everyone in the transaction agreed that we would be the best steward of those sites moving forward. And yeah, it's been great. So we combined recovery.org and recovery.com, which for kind of SEO nerds that are listening to this, we really thought that combining the domain authority would be hopefully like a 1+1=3 type of situation. And it very much was for us. So just helped our rankings in a bunch of different ways. And they had a lot of great content. And then we run rehabs.com as a separate website still focused on SUD treatment.
Phenomenal. At Elevate, typically when we bring on new facilities, at least from an SEO standpoint, getting, again, the authority score up and listed on all directories within topical relevance. I came to learn now 3 years into this industry that there is many directories out there, and it's hard to navigate in terms of which one are legitimate. I remember one of the first clients that came on board, and we were doing all this market research and figuring out which directories and listings, local listings, they should be placed on. Many of these directories were maybe sponsored by facilities, and you call the listing number, and then it actually goes to some call center elsewhere. Navigating that can be very difficult for many facilities I've come to encounter in terms of what can actually be counterproductive for them to be listed on certain directories or not. And I think you
Yeah.
guys have basically set the standard for what it should be done, how it should be done in the right way, and including your recent initiative of requiring LegitScript certification, which I think was a big bold move. What was one of the drivers behind making that transition into your partnership with LegitScript?
Yeah, I think actually, can I share my screen? I know that I don't know how many people are going to be watching this versus listening to it, but I think I can just
Oh yeah,
talk
there's
through
a
it
lot to watch.
quickly. Okay, because I just want to emphasize the point that you were making about some of these websites. So my goal is not to necessarily name and shame any particular website, but there most of the basically directory websites out there are set up in a way that have these profile pages for treatment centers. And what you get is a phone number to a central hotline that we believe really relies on dark patterns to get people to call these centers. If you go on this profile page here, this phone number, you would think if you're a patient, like, you've got a phone number here, you got a phone number at the bottom, you got a phone number
Mm,
even here, you would think
it's
that
three different
that
phone
would
numbers.
call this treatment center, but it doesn't. This is
Yeah,
the phone number for the treatment center. See here in the small
yeah,
print,
yes.
basically. And instead, there's 4 or 5 call to actions for this phone
Mm,
number that is really calling a central sponsored hotline where they might have this website might have a dozen or so sponsors that pick up the calls and then try to convince the person to go to whatever treatment center is sponsoring the hotline, not the one that they actually looked at. I think that if you go on our site, whether it's a free listing or a paid listing, they look very similar. And the only phone number on our website on any of these profile pages is for the treatment center itself. It's going to contact the admissions line, and it's all about the treatment center that you're looking at. Anyways, it's funny because people that aren't in the industry don't necessarily know how prevalent that is, but it's just crazy if you start going around looking at the various websites, even directories that you probably do want to be on from a link perspective. Most of them are
yeah,
using that kind of dark
yeah,
UX pattern to fund things through a hotline, which we've never had a
yeah,
hotline and that built to in a way that we could really provide
yeah.
actual value. Yeah.
I was literally shocked. And that's why I wanted to bring it up because I've spoken with many facilities. I was not aware of it. And maybe they're working with an agency that's not exclusive in this space and it's hard to navigate. Personally, I find it almost borderline disgusting, especially I'm here in the Tampa area and I go AA meetings near me, NA meetings near me, smart recovery meetings near me, and almost the first three search results, similar directories preying on people's suffering.
Yeah.
So I think the necessity and what you guys have done has become such a
Yeah.
instrumental resource that's needed to validate who's the legitimate providers. And I know you guys have a lot of other initiatives and you're looking to put outcome studies into profiles. You added legit script verification. You have a very stringent
Hmm.
advertiser verification process before anybody can advertise. That's some of the things that I truly admire about the organization that you build up. It's always patient centric first, every initiative that shines through. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Was that one of the core reasons that you went into the industry? If you started out 10 years ago, I think that was still when there was still a lot of body brokering and all these call centers and lead aggregators with shade intentions. Was that part of the mission really to try to combat the dark side of the industry and help more providers?
Yeah, I think that was definitely our primary motivation. And then I think we had worked with a lot of treatment centers and knew how much money is spent on Google for patient acquisition. And we thought that we could build a alternative platform that would provide treatment centers with high quality calls of people that have already looked at various options and hopefully are ready to come to treatment. Because I think we've spent a lot of time with admissions teams and know just the kind of emotional toll it takes on getting a bunch of calls from people that can't go to the treatment center that they're calling about. This might be the only call this person makes, and for them to call and not be able to go to that treatment center is terrible. It's unfortunately very common and hard to combat completely, but some of the things that we're continuing to invest in is insurance screeners, because that's a big piece of the puzzle. It's someone will call and then be told, "Oh, you can't, your insurance doesn't cover this," which is terrible. And especially when there actually are typically a lot of treatment centers that would accept their insurance. It's just finding the right one. Insurance is a big piece of it. I think that's been our motivation. You asked about LegitScript earlier. Back when we started the company around that same time, LegitScript was very helpful in getting a lot of these aggregators that were doing the kind of shady practices we're talking about out of the Google paid listings. Basically, what they were doing was just buying up keywords on Google and ranking really well, and then all the traffic. Now, to advertise for substance use disorder, you have to have LegitScript certification, as I'm sure all your customers know. And what that has done is prevented these type of aggregators from ending up in the paid results for the most part, but they can still do really well on the organic side. So that's still a challenge.
And on your platform, and I think compared to when really launching Elevate, I think I was like almost in the kitchen myself, doing very hands-on to make sure that provided a framework that was tested, vetted, and would enable facilities to grow. And most directories or marketplaces is typically just like a flat fee. And I think there's different business models to it. But up until recently, you had a pay-per-view model, which I think comparative to if you look at the expensive cost per click on Google, et cetera, it was a very viable for most facilities, especially if you had some unique differentiators. If you have a special niche positioning, is something, it's almost, as I always tell my clients, it's typically a slam dunk because then you position yourself uniquely. If you have good reviews, etc., on your profile, and we therefore recommend a lot of business. But recently, you made an interesting move. I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about that. You shifted from the cost per view model into a more broader cost per result structure, not a pay performance-based model per se, but where you are weighing the different potential outcomes. Can you expand a little bit on what made you take the move in that direction, and what has the initial response been from advertisers?
As we've evolved over time, over the past 10 years, actually, when we first started, we had used just a subscription model. So you would just pay to be whatever, a premium center in your state or something like that, which was like a very basic model that a lot of our centers got a lot of value out of. But over time, as markets got more crowded, that didn't scale very well. And the so it was a pretty big innovation for us anyways, a few years into our journey where we switched to a cost per profile view model, which was, yeah, treatment centers would pay us per profile view, very similar to cost per click. I think that did scale for a while quite well, but there were a couple challenges with that being the only option. The primary challenge is that not all clicks are the same from an intent perspective. We get traffic from a bunch of different channels now. We used to be very primarily reliant on Google organic, but we knew that was not going to be the way that we could scale recovery.com. We really want to be a household name for people that know, go to recovery.com to find treatment. And that might be another 10-year journey to get to that point, but that's where we want to be. We can't be reliant on just one channel. And so we have a pretty strong channel mix now. I think Google organic is maybe 40-50% of our traffic, and then we get traffic from a lot of paid channels as well as social media. We get direct returning visitors, retargeting, things like that. So there's a whole mix of traffic, and with that you get people at different levels of intent that are on their journey. Some are just poking around, some are actually ready to go to treatment. What we introduced earlier this year, which is similar to pretty much every advertising platform you come across, is the ability to set a target cost per result. That's what we call it, as a cost per result. But you can think of it, a lot of platforms might call it a cost per lead or cost per call. So what we're trying to get at is letting customers set the cost per lead that makes sense for their business. I know you do a lot of work with that, Gary, on doing that math backwards, like looking at their funnel and being like, this is your cost per lead that you're going to need if you have this conversion from lead to qualified lead and then qualified lead to admissions. So every treatment center's kind of cost structure is different. And so that's the other thing, is we were just seeing, as we added treatment centers, there's all sorts of permutations of what numbers might make sense for a treatment center, to what dollar number might make sense. And that can vary even month to month, or even during different times of the month. We're in many ways just trying to get to parity with other ad platforms that we're competing with, because we want treatment centers to move their spend from Google to us. Basically, we want them to feel like their spend with us is a better ROI, that they get more qualified calls, et cetera. So we felt like, to do that, we needed to add this, what we saw as a table stakes feature, which is the ability to set that cost per result target. And you don't have to set it. You can still say on our legacy model, or let our team handle that for you. But for more like sophisticated marketers that also want to scale their spend significantly, they want to have that lever to make sure that their spend is scaling at a kind of at the
Mm.
ROI that they need. Yeah.
Yeah, I highly endorse and recommend it. It forces you to go into the mindset of breaking down your entire admissions journey and considering the different metrics, and thereby allowing yourself to be more competitive and bidding according to what makes financial sense in terms of driving census, hitting your census targets. I'm curious, just once you, because I'm looking at this from a broader lens. When we work with facilities, I usually say we're platform or publisher agnostic. Really, our objective is not necessarily to push your money on Recur.com or Google Ads or Meta Ads, Microsoft. It's really what works the best in looking at the different channels.
Yep.
Recur.com is typically one of the more cost effective for most scenarios. But with this new pricing structure, have you put thought into, because what I've seen with many of facilities is you got a out of network facility, right? They're willing to pay significantly more for patient acquisition because they are factoring in a higher reimbursement rate. They're fishing for these PPO policies, etc. Is there any concern about them taking up more of the visibility, and thereby for the in-network facilities not getting as much exposure as maybe they would deserve?
I think that's definitely a dynamic that we see play out in a few different ways. One is that if you're really choosy on what policies you're looking for, or that you have a really expensive cash pay option, it is finding a needle in a haystack. And I think that we are not necessarily looking for customers that have those very specific criteria from a payer perspective. If basically you are only serving a small percentage of the population, like we have 1 or 2%, like we have strategies to make that work. We have a luxury side of the website, because we used to operate the website luxuryrehabs.com and helped a lot of these high-end treatment centers with their kind of specific criteria that they're looking for. And we still have a huge segment of those and get a lot of luxury traffic, but we try to keep those centers showing up. Our goal, anyways, is for those centers to show up when people are showing that type of intent, because that's good for us as recovery.com. It's good for our customers, and it's good for advertisers. Our goal is to get to that point where those very high end kind of out of network centers are mostly showing up when people are trying to find those. I think the current state right now is more messy, and we're trying to, that's on our roadmap to help bifurcate those better. For instance, like with our insurance screener stuff that I talked about, like we really want people to put in their insurance plan, even down to the plan level, and then hopefully have enough data from treatment centers on what insurances they accept, that hopefully you can, as a user, narrow that down to, so you're only seeing treatment centers that you can actually go to. I would say generally the centers that are really successful on our platform have tend to have broader kind of insurance acceptance. Those are the ones that when we hear, oh, great, you're spending on other paid channels and you have some in-network contracts and you're not policy shopping, like you will do well on our platform. So I think That's what we've seen, and are working to make sure that we can keep both of those groups happy and successful, and know that also from a patient perspective, insurance policy that has amazing out of network benefits, we actually want to highlight those options to you. Because actually, like when you talk to an insurance company, we don't partner with any insurance companies right now or anything like that. And one of the reasons for that is that there can be some misaligned incentives where an insurance company wants their clients to go to the in-network options, even if they have great out-of-network benefits. From our perspective, we're like, hey, if you have great insurance, we want to help you figure that out. That, oh wow, you have this great out-of-network benefit, and you can go to this amazing treatment center that you wouldn't have thought that you'd be able to
Mm,
afford. We try to be agnostic
mhm,
on those type
mhm.
of things for the most part.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Which facility has the highest probability of supporting you with the desired outcome and sustaining recovery?
Yeah.
And that's also what I like about some of your initiatives with publishing outcome data, putting reviews, putting alumni profiles as front and center.
Yeah. And I
This
was
year I
gonna
had the, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Gary. I was gonna say, because one thing back to that bidding conversation, what's interesting is that we certainly do sort our ranking based on that on the bid, that is part of it, but we also sort it based on things like click-through rate, and we do it also based on quality score. So we have a quality score in the background that our internal research team is doing, looking at things like reviews. And as we develop our kind of product around the outcomes, like we really want outcomes to actually impact the sort order. So there's a lot of things that we're investing in on that front. And our intent is, of course, the bid is going to have a factor, but we don't want, it's not on Google. You can much more kind of, yeah, they have their own quality score and stuff too, but it's not tied, it's not specific to this industry, where that's where it's
Mm.
really cool from, since we're just in behavioral healthcare, we can develop a ranking that can hopefully be patient first.
Yeah, I love the element about reviews and outcomes. And I
Yeah.
think that would particularly incentivize many facilities with the best intentions that probably do it just as part of their mission to support people and get them access to the care they deserve. It just comes naturally. And I think that would benefit a lot. Let's expand a little bit on that, because I think everything you just said speaks to how you built what I consider a truly mission first company. And this is in a space where you got a lot of private equity, you got VCs coming in now. There's a lot of growth pressure. And so how do you protect the mission like that as the leader for Ricardo.com? How do you protect such a mission at the same time
Mhm.
with the remarkable growth? If I'm not mistaken, you guys almost doubled in growth over the last year or two, at least in size and team members, etc.
Yeah, I think we
What kind of
were,
measures do you put into place? I'm curious. What would you recommend our listeners growing a facility? How do you keep that in place and always put the mission first?
yeah, I think we were on the Inc. 5000 or whatever it's called, the fastest growing companies. We were the second fastest growing company a couple years ago in Wisconsin. The funny thing, it's ironic, the number one was a canned cocktail company. So kind of covering both sides of it. But I think that also is a perfect, that's Wisconsin for you, which is where we're based here in Madison, Wisconsin. So, yeah, I think that from the outset, we had this, like I said, I think our origin story kind of helps. We started the company from that mission perspective. So, me and my co founder are still running the company as well. And so I think that helps a lot. And along the way, we instilled hopefully our core values into the rest of our team as we've grown. We have our core values: compassion, vulnerability, growth, joy, accountability, and creativity are our core values. And then we have these brand promises. I think what you're showing, we independent and unbiased, ethical, helpful and educational and comprehensive. Those are kind of like our four brand pillars that you're like just about to on the screen there. Investors that you bring on and things like that are really important to making sure that they're basically letting you be comfortable running the company according to your mission and values. And I think that we did find really good investors. The VC that we worked with is called HealthX. They're based in Madison and they invest in healthcare companies. And so I think if you invest in healthcare, I do think you understand that the patient has to come first. Hopefully, there's examples of that not necessarily happening, but I think that maybe we've just gotten lucky with good investors that I think are really values driven, because I know that eventually money can really cause a lot of problems. But I think so far we've been able to continue with our mission. We have really values based investors. Actually, our Series A investor is in recovery himself, which is great. And I think also just pragmatically, they understand that the business model has to be patient first for it to be sustainable in the long term, and that we have to maintain a really strong, like, marketing is all about trust. And so it took us a long time. And I think one of, if I'm talking kind of investor speak, like one of our moats as a company is the trust that we've built in the space with treatment centers and agencies like yours. Because if we lose that trust by taking shortcuts or doing things that would harm patients, if you just think of it from an economic perspective, you can very easily lose your market by doing that.
Yeah. Said I only flirted a little bit with, not flirted, done a couple of transactions.
Yeah.
So had my fair share of VC money and investment bankers that were snooping around. That's a hard domain to navigate. I know later this year, for instance, there's also a conference coming up where they speak a lot about it. It's the Treatment Center Investment Valuation
Yeah.
Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, very focused on investment, VC, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of private equity there. How have you, because you guys have acquired several companies, several brands, you have raised
Hmm.
money, you have expanded. What kind of advice would you give to a treatment owner, executive who's to raise capital, right? He wants to expand the
Yeah.
impact in the market, they identify an opportunity to expand the levels of care, open up a second location, or go to another state, or do telehealth. How do you assess whether it's a good strategic partner that won't
Hmm.
compromise your clinical integrity? What kind of tips from you being at the forefront of this for many years that you would extend?
I think probably one piece of practical advice is to not necessarily chase valuations. That's good advice that I've gotten, I think, is that the valuation number is fake. It's not fake, but it's like it doesn't, people get really hung up on, oh, I want an investor that's going to value me at X amount because I think we're worth it. And that is important. And obviously, is super important if you choose to exit. Eventually, that whatever the valuation is that you exit, that does result in real dollars. But a term sheet, there's much more to it than just the valuation. Read a lot into how that partner is going to work with you based on the terms that they're trying to put in the term sheet around what are they going to trust you to do independently as the operator of the company versus what are things that they're mandating around exit timing or things that they're going to want to sign off on. Are you going to actually be able to run the company as you have been, or are you going to have to run everything by them? There is obviously, you're probably going to have to give up a board seat and they're going to have some influence, but you can tell, I can think of different term sheets that we've gotten where it's, man, this is not a very kind of founder friendly term sheet. The number looks nice, but maybe we should look for something that maybe we don't like that number quite as much, but they're going to leave us alone and let us run the business. Because I think that's where it's, if you've started a company and you think you have a great mission and can scale it, you are mostly wanting the least strings attached as possible. And you're never going to get completely no strings attached because I think, regardless of anything you do, if you raise money, the bar for success, you just raised the bar for success. And so you have to realize that it's okay now that you've raised money, those people that put, they're looking for a return someday. So you need to figure out how you're going to get them a return. And if you think you can scale it to, so I think actually even talking through expectations is really important with the investors to be like, what's the time frame that you want to be able to exit and what would be a successful outcome for you, and make sure that you're really aligned. I think that's similar to if you're trying to bring on a customer, you're like, what are your expectations for what success looks like? I think that's a really important conversation to have, and try to have that conversation more than once before you sign the deal.
Yeah, said probably easier said than done. But some good cues to look out
Yeah,
for
'cause
there.
yeah, it's really exhilarating to get a term sheet and know that people are valuing what you've built
Yeah,
and see the promise in it,
yeah,
but you do wanna be, and obviously, I think it goes without saying, make sure you have good legal representation, so,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, because I think there's so much going on, right? You got AI moving faster than ever. You got a lot of legislation being rolled out. There is transformational changes to payer mix, reimbursement rates. When you combine all these different things and how technology is basically evolving fastly, what would your recommendation be to a facility owner as they take an outlook of the next, say, 3 to 5 years? What should they be on the lookout for and pay particular attention to?
Isn't that your job to tell them that? No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to give free
Possibly.
advice. I think you should hire Gary and he'll tell you that. But yeah, I think that on the marketing side, I think we've had a theme in this conversation about trust. I think that is as important as ever. And that kind of shows up in different ways. But as people are just armed with more kind of they can now use LLMs and learn a whole bunch of things before they actually reach out to you as a treatment center. And they're going to find the any dirty laundry or bad reviews that are out there. And then hopefully on the flip side, I think that it is interesting to see treatment centers using outcomes more in their marketing. And I hope that increases because I think and that we're certainly trying to help promote that trend because ultimately that's what people want. Is this place going to help me or my loved one get better? So, like we work with ERP Help, and there's multiple kind of third party outcomes providers that you can, as a treatment center, start working with and they can help you get better. But I think that can have, if done right, can have an impact on your bottom line beyond just helping people because you can get that, if you can successfully get that into your marketing stack.
Mm. I wholeheartedly agree. Where folks are concerned, I said, listen, if you have good intention, if you have a strong program, if you're patient centric and always been focused on outcomes, you're in a pole position, I would say, because now with AEO, GEO, I think more important than ever is going to be and the brands that have trust and authority is going to be favorized, and reviews is going to come into play. Is referred domains. I'd say you're not going to be able to manipulate maybe as if you look at 10 years ago where those
Mhm.
all these lists of lead aggregators marketplaces, the data will reveal who gets positioned as the preferred. That being said, there's still obviously a lot of technicalities in terms of making sure that you
Yeah.
are index you can be found on all the different AI platforms. But if you
Yeah.
lean into it, I think it's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, truly being able to differentiate your program and not try to do everything for everyone. And then, yeah, work with an agency like yours or make sure that your marketing team is really good at storytelling because that's ultimately what you're doing is helping someone envision what their life could look like if
Hmm.
they use your service.
Let me ask you a question. I feel like one thing that is being overlooked and not paying enough attention to, which I think is going to be a significant factor, is everything from HIPAA to security and compliance. Kind of some categories that has not been front and center, but really I think it's going to be very important moving forward if you want to scale. What's your view on that? I know you guys recently acquired, if I'm not mistaken, Red Fox AI. I'm not sure if it's this exact same functionalities. It covers some, but it's what's your view on these different categories?
On the HIPAA compliance and privacy side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I am certainly not an expert on those topics. I think that you should have someone on your team or a consultant that is an expert because that's where you can really get bit. At the same time, I do think that we've had some of our clients that have gone so far towards this kind of risk, avoiding all risk, especially the ones that tend to be larger, that they have lawyers on their team that are just always finding things to be scared about. It means that all of a sudden they can't track anything and are just flying blind. I obviously won't name any names, but I feel bad for the marketers at these companies because they've been completely handcuffed by their kind of if we're thinking about it from a marketing side of things, they've been completely handcuffed by their legal teams without any operational support. Because if you are going to say we can't do this on the data side anymore, you better have a good alternative on how you're going to track how your marketing's going, or you're just going to blow through a ton of money. So, because we have some customers where it's a few years ago, they were really good at tracking their data. They could tell us exactly how many admissions they were receiving. That was the conversation every month is, hey, here's your cost per admission for these providers, we should expand, or oh, this one's not working very well. But for a while now, it's been some of those clients are just completely in the dark to what's happening. And it's surprising because I know a lot of other places that have done it and are feeling like they're compliant with what they need to be compliant with, and also are really good at tracking the data they need to know whether they're being successful. So I think you obviously want to make sure that you're compliant on how you're doing marketing, but make sure that you don't do things that completely turn off your ability to be successful at marketing too. Hopefully you can do both at once. So I do think probably working with experts that can help with that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have a big partner ecosystem and
Yeah.
support many advertisers with that. And I know one of the things that I think is maybe in reference to that is I'll be seeing you, I think, in 3-4 weeks' time. You
Yeah.
guys are
Yep.
you're doing the
It's our third in a
recovery.com
row.
marketing
Yep.
summit, your
Yep.
third in the row,
Yep.
which is basically bringing in advertisers, clients, partners like ourselves,
Mm.
etc., and basically educating the industry on what's at the forefront from a patient acquisition standpoint. I think this year you have double the amount of participants compared to last year, from my understanding. What has fueled that initiative, and how have you gotten to
Yeah.
where you are today with that?
We started it 3 years ago. I think what kind of led me to want to start it back then was for many years now, I've gone to this summit. It's called the Lighter Capital Summit, and they do debt financing, and they've been our partner on that front for many years. And whenever I go to their summit, I just am invigorated talking to peers essentially. I get to spend time with peers, and just I learn a lot, and it's always great. And what I like about it is it's also relatively small and very scaled too. You have to be like a founder of a company or a CEO. And so when we wanted to build this, we kept the list very exclusive in terms of you have to be a marketing executive at a treatment center or an owner. And then we reserve some spots for some technology partners and stuff like that. Getting those people into a room and having it be very collaborative, and you're hopefully learning from peers was the thought. And I knew that a lot of the digital marketers in our space, like they don't always like end up having to spend a lot of time on their computers behind a screen, trying to keep everyone happy and the lights on basically at these treatment centers. And they don't always get a lot of time to rub shoulders with peers. So yeah, I think we've gotten just tons of great feedback. We just 3 years ago tried it. Some people showed up and it was awesome. And now we've really been able to make it a really successful venture over the past couple of years. But yeah, and it's just also a nice way for us to spend time with our customers, get to know them more, learn more about their needs. I'm looking forward to having you come again. It's always a great event.
Conference of the year, I think, where
You don't have
the
to say
most
that,
insight.
but
But maybe I'm a little
yeah,
biased because it's about
yeah,
marketing and patient
yeah.
acquisition. Excited. Ben,
Thanks.
this has been great. Let me just ask you here on a final note. You've been in this space for over a decade now and built a site with over 22,000, if I'm not mistaken, providers listed, and having thousands of advertisers and hundreds of technology partners, really made a big impact for so many employees. So it's safe to say that you have your finger on the pulse. If I was to give you a magic wand and you could say, I want to change this one thing about this industry for the better, what would that be and why?
I think in the nirvana state, I would love every time that someone calls a treatment center, they don't get turned away for financial reasons. That would be amazing. And I think that's one thing that we're working on in terms of trying to help people get ahead of that before they make that call. Outside of like nirvana, I think that it'd be great if Medicaid reimbursement rates could help you actually run a viable business. For instance, along those lines, that's yeah, we have Medicaid, we have Medicare, and a lot of those people need help. But it's interesting to see a lot of the providers that creatively are able to run a successful business. But I know how much creativity that takes. And then we see access to Medicaid, Medicare getting reduced recently, which is terrible. I think that ideally more people would be able to get help. Our passion is very much in helping people understand what their options are and how to take a next step. One of the main reasons that people don't get help is because they don't know what the right next step is. I think our goal is to increase access to care mostly by helping inform people on what options are available for them.
Two things that are golden there. I think financial barriers is typically the biggest thing, obviously, but giving people options, giving people the education, giving people an understanding how they can navigate this crisis in their life or the life of their significant others goes a long way, because typically that resourcefulness leads to solutions at the end of the day. So, Ben, thank you so much for the great work you guys are doing. Again, it's a privilege to be a partner with you and work with you, and can only recommend your platform to any facility owner out there looking to drive census further.
Scary.
Ben, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get in contact with you at recovery.com?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You're welcome to message me on there, connect there, or shoot me an email at ben@recovery.com.
But Ben, thank you so much again for being on the Elevate podcast, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at the Recovery Markets in Madison.
Likewise. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks again.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Elevate podcast. If you liked the content you heard today, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next show.